Our presenters are, Sandra Skinaway, who is the eldest child of Clifford Skinaway Sr. and Gloria Sire Skinaway of McGregor, Minnesota. Her father was the hereditary chief Bugonigishe, Chief Hole in the Sky of the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi, Chippewa. She is a peacetime veteran of the United States Army where she served in telecommunications. She has 2 grown children and 3 grandchildren who are the center of her life. She currently advocates for Maingan wolf to stop the wolf hunting and trapping seasons in Minnesota as the co-founder of the Northwoods Wolf Alliance. And this is Sandra. Our next, her co-presenter is Reyna Crow. I guess that's obvious.
I'm Reyna.
Who's a freelance writer, organizer for I Don't Know More Duluth, and is the other co-founder of Northwoods Wolf Alliance. She has a BS in economics and a long history of advocacy for animals at both a grassroots and professional level, with particular interest in the connections between various types of oppression. Following their presentation, we'll then move, of course, into the question and answer session. And so, take it away.
People spread out, but I'll have you kind of figure it out.
I've got 3 handouts, and when people spread out a little bit, I thought the most efficient thing to do would be just to send all 3 around, and each, you can grab one, and we'll make reference to these in our presentation. Miigwech, thank you for being here. Sandy and I, as Steve said, are the co-founders of the Northwoods Wolf Alliance. And we organized in the Duluth, Minnesota area this last summer, and we organized obviously primarily in the hopes that we could prevent a hunt on Maingan, which is the Ojibwa word for wolf, this last year, and failed to do so. However, we want to work to stop the hunt in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, and work to prevent one in Michigan. There is a group here in the Twin Cities called Howling for Wolves that we work very closely with, and some of you may be familiar with. It's not an animal rights group per se, and we have a lot of discussion about whether fundraisers are held where there's vegan food and some of these other things, because people on the wolf issue are coming from a pretty broad array of perspectives on animal issues generally. And we're all trying to work together on this particular issue because it is so iconic, and it is such a symbolic, an issue of such symbolic importance in terms of the struggle between people who want to protect animals and the environment and people, I'll say sport hunters and trophy hunters who make consumptive use and believe that that's the right purpose for nature and animals. The reason that we did not become Howling for Wolves North or Howling for Wolves Duluth is that, as some of you may, I don't know how many of you are aware of this or not, but the wolf has a very special cultural and spiritual significance to the Anishinaabe people. And when we look at where the gray wolf's territory is, we see that there is an almost exact overlap. They are in Anishinaabe country, in Upper Peninsula of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and northern Minnesota. And so there's something that strikes me as particularly offensive and problematic when you have white sport hunters coming, not only killing the spiritual brother of the Anishinaabe, but coming into Anishinaabe country to do so. So we wanted to organize as a separate group with a specific focus on Anishinaabe environmental ethics, because it is very different than the dominant culture, and I would say that religion or spirituality is kind of the root of where things really begin to be very different. And we also, assuming that we are eventually successful in stopping these hunts, our group, the Northwoods Wolf Alliance, intends to remain active at a grassroots level in all 3 of those states, in Anishinaabe country and the United States, to engage in advocacy and education. I was involved back in the late 90s when the Wolf Roundtable, the DNR was having people talk about the Roundtable Management Plan for Wolves, and we really thought that we kind of had some protection in place, and in retrospect I look back and I realize that what we failed to do is to continue to get out there and teach and educate. And our opponents, the sport hunters, the ag lobby, they certainly are continuing to be active and have been working with DNR and other agencies for a long period of time. So it's going to take us a while. We don't have the resources, but we are going to catch up. At least the science and ethics are on our side, we believe. And so even though we don't have the money, we don't have lobbyists and so forth, we do believe that at a grassroots level, by educating youth in particular, that we will be able to make some headway on this issue. I just put a couple of vocabulary words up there. We do have a Gmail account. One of the handouts that I sent out has got our website on it if you want some more information. So if you want to get on our mailing list or check out the website, you've got the information to do that. But I wanted to share just a few brief vocabulary words. Buju is hello. Miigwech, thank you. And maingan is the word for wolf in Ojibwe. So we often use that word instead of wolf. And there's a lot of confusion, I know, in the southern part of the state. Not everybody is familiar with the Anishinaabe up north. But I wanted to explain to the Anishinaabe are the people, and Ojibwa is the culture. So I've met many people from southern Minnesota who think these are distinct, two different bands, and that's not the case. So I thought that I would clear that up for you. At this time, I wanted to turn it over to Sandy and have Sandy talk a little bit about that cultural and spiritual relationship between Maingan and the Anishinaabe. And the White Earth, one of the things that we passed out, as some of you may be aware, all of the Anishinaabe tribes in Minnesota banned wolf hunting on their reservations and in the ceded territory over which they have control. Two, White Earth and Red Lake designated their lands as wolf sanctuary. So one of the things that I often hear from people in the dominant culture is they come in, well, why aren't the tribes suing and why aren't the tribes doing more? And I think the tribes have really done their part. It's very unusual for all, the Minnesota Chippewa tribes are 6 of the tribes in Minnesota, excluding Red Lake. Red Lake kind of does its own thing, but it's very unusual to have all of the tribes pulling together on one issue. So I want to have Sandy talk a little bit about that. And you've got a copy of the proclamation, and we want to talk a little bit more in detail after Sandy's done about that proclamation.
Oh, and also the Michigan tribes.
Oh yeah, the Michigan tribes, I don't know if you've heard. I haven't read a copy of and I'm dying to get a hold of it. I just haven't had much internet time in the last couple of weeks. But the Anishinaabe tribes in Michigan have filed suit against the state DNR there to prevent a wolf hunt from happening in that state. So we're going to be anxiously watching that, and I'm very curious. I see 3 or 4 different angles that they could have gone at that with, and I'm interested to see what they chose to cite. So go ahead, Sandy, I'll have you take it over.
Okay, just to, with the Anishinaabe, that's what the word that the Ojibwe people call themselves, and then otherwise we're known as Ojibwe to, the non-Indians. Anishinaabe is what we call each other. Well, like Reyna was telling you, the wolf is really important to our culture, the Anishinaabe people in general. The relationship with Maingan goes back to the origin of the Ojibwe people themselves. Wolves have been respected by the Ojibwe people and their culture, mainly because of the large role wolves have played in the Ojibwe creation story. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with that at all. The Ojibwe and the wolves have coexisted for centuries prior to the European settlement. And talking about the prior European settlement of North America, wolves were abundant and lived in the same areas as Native American tribes across the United States. As European settlers began to colonize America, they brought negative views of the wolves with them, which resulted in the eventual eradication of wolves from nearly all of the contiguous United States. The difference in cultural views between European colonists who saw the wolf as a vicious predator and the Native Americans who were able to coexist with wolf for centuries has resulted today in differing management strategies between tribal and state agencies for the wolf, which is now returning to its native range within the United States after being actively persecuted since the 19th century. And seeing wolves in the wild, it would be considered truly a gift to be able to see them, as the Anishinaabe Ojibwe considered wolves sacred. From a science and or ecological perspective, wolves have a place. They're not doing anyone any physical harm. And recreational sports hunting, there's no subsistence factor in wolf hunting. The wolf hunt is driven